This is the Real Melbourne Podcast, the central point of this beautiful city's culture. I'm Alex Dickinson.
And I'm Brian Hughes. Welcome to episode number 8, guys. Thank you for joining us. We have a special guest in the building.
We do. This is someone I've known for a long time. He's been putting in the long hours, doing crazy tours all over the world. We're welcomed by LeBron. Welcome, bro.
What's up? Thanks for having me.
I think this is like a running trend with Real Melbourne because last week we interviewed an artist by the name of Kobe, so I think we've got like a basketball thing going on here. What made you come up with the name LeBron?
Boy, well, it's confusing because a lot of people obviously think it's a basketballer.
I think
but
the king.
It was actually my name, which is Roni, but R-O-N, and then a mate I began the project with back when we were kids. And his name was, L-E-B, so we kind of merged it together and it sounded Frenchy. And then coincidentally, it was the same as the basketballer, so we were like, you know what? People won't forget it. Let's go with that. We weren't serious about it. We're just like posting stuff online. And, all of a sudden started posting stuff. And then once you post stuff, you can't change it. Like you can't change the name. You undo all your work you've done. So, yeah, got stuck with it. And,
How'd you go with the other guy? Where's the other guy, man?
Well, no one knows. He never really did anything like publicly, I guess. We were good mates growing up and had shared the same interest in a lot of French house music and stuff, like Daft Punk and like a lot of roots, like soul music and stuff. I guess like kind of remix that kind of genre. And he just veered off into a slightly different category, and I kind of went another way and
took the name with you.
Yeah, took the name with me, exactly.
That's
so
good.
Did you have a bit of a following before the split, or was it was literally nothing?
Well, without trying to pump my tires up,
all right.
No, we didn't. But we just kind of went in blind and just wanted to initially just record our own music for our own pleasure. It's the music that I love to listen to. So I started just mixing and trying to make that kind of music. And he didn't really have the interest in the production side of things or properly recording things as best as he can. Mm-hmm. And I guess I did and had to post them on platforms. So, that I felt the pressure of making something good. Mm-hmm. So, not that it's good, but wanted to put my best effort in.
Of course.
And that's how it just kind of grew from there. So, yeah.
Fantastic, man. And, I was going through your SoundCloud and I was trying to figure out for myself, what kind of broke you into, getting all of these plays? Do you feel like it's the Breakbot series mixtapes? Do you feel like it was your originals or remix or, a combination of all of them?
It's been funny. I've had, so obviously this guy Breakbot, he's my favorite DJ, and been lucky enough through the Breakbot series to actually, I kind of did a tribute mix for him, and then it wasn't until the second or third one that he actually discovered. I never really sent it to him. He kind of discovered it and appreciated it, reposted it on his social media, and then I remember waking up one morning. It was probably when we were in class together, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I kind of, was a bit, tired and rubbing the eyes and went to the computer, checked the notifications, and I just saw Breakbot, posted on your timeline or something like that, or tagged you. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Hang on a second. And then looked back. I'm like, hang on, he's referencing me. What the hell is going on? So I looked into it, and all of a sudden I've had 50,000 plays overnight, and
more followers and stuff.
Yeah, all of a sudden all these friend requests and follows on SoundCloud, and weirdly enough, I didn't have social media set up at all. I was kind of against it, and because I saw it as a lot of people were selling out, and look at this, competitions, blah blah blah, and I wanted to kind of avoid that. I just wanted to keep it as an artist thing, and then, obviously, Facebook became too strong and you had to have one. So, unfortunately, I made one after that. Otherwise, had I made one before that time, I would have had a massive influx, and my presence would be huge. Yeah. But still got a bit of traction out of it. The SoundCloud got boosted really well. And then I did a couple of tracks, small production things. And got the eye of a couple of people in the right places, I guess. One track I did like a kind of sample of like a group, Sister Sledge, and they did like We Are Family, and He's the Greatest Dancer, sampled by Will Smith. Really popular in the 80s, and their manager contacted me and wanted to do a track, and in the end I went to London, and stupid me, my phone ran out of credit, so the moment I went to top it up, it was about 10 a.m, and they go, I get the email from the manager, and he's like, can you meet at 10:30? And I'm like 2 hours away on the other side of town. And they're like, the sisters have to go. They've got like a private gig, like in a helicopter way up north somewhere. So that's the only chance.
So you had an opportunity to do a track with sisters.
Yeah, so that was meeting them and doing like a bit of a face-to-face kind of meet and greet.
Wow. And
talk about how we're going to do it. And then I just missed it. And then I had another opportunity, something along those lines. Like I've had a few of these things, but I'm sure it's the same with everyone. You know, you got to be there at the right place at the right time.
It's all timing, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I didn't really rate the work by any means. Like, I didn't think it was the best song I've ever made. But it's weird how some people just appreciate it more than others, you know? So, yeah, I was kind of like, why are you choosing me? Like, why do you like, you know, there's all these super, like, producers out there. And then the guys who actually made, you know, the music with violins and stuff. And then you're just choosing a guy who just chopped up an MP3, you know? Kind of didn't really make sense to me. So, yeah, but it's been interesting, yeah.
What sort of other... Because you mentioned that this has happened to you again and again. So, like, has there been any other examples of this where you've, you know, an artist has kind of reached out to you to do a remix or work with you and everything, and it's just kind of fallen through?
Yeah, I had a guy, Stu, I think, STWO, and I had an opportunity with him just in talks, and then just fades away. He's like a kind of a trappy / glitch hop kind of producer. But again, it's like what happens is, I guess it's your confidence. It's like you still feel, and that's why it's really important to work with someone who oversees what you do, because as an artist, you're never satisfied with what you've got. You know, like whether it's painting a picture, you're going to keep drawing streaks of green in there. No, I need a bit of red over here. And then before you know it, you destroy it and you're like, oh, far out. You need someone overlooking it going, whoa, that's enough.
That's enough.
That's
yeah.
enough.
It's true.
And same with music.
It's the same with photography as well. When I do like take photos and I go and edit, or I go make videos and go and edit, it's the same thing. You reach a point and you're like, oh man, I've been working on this photo for way too long. I don't know whether I should keep going or it's good enough as it is or it can improve. And it's true. You need someone to, like, you know, bounce ideas off and tell you it's fine. Have you felt like the people you work with, are they mainly from overseas, or do you have a bit of a group in Melbourne that you can find those people? Yeah,
for me, generally overseas.
Yeah.
What's weird for me about Melbourne is, I guess, like the music I'm into, like a lot of roots R&B and like disco, funk, soul stuff. There is a little bit of exposure over here, but I guess because Australia is a place, you know, where when my parents grew up, it was very big on rock and roll and English influence rather than, you know, the African American Chicago house scene or the disco scene from, you know, Atlanta or anything like that. So I think it's ingrained in a lot of people, that rock and roll thing over here, and they're not so aware of the soul. But when you go over to Europe, there's like people whose parents grew up on it. So, and, you know, even when some of my friends from overseas growing up as a kid, you know, their parents had record players with like a wall full of like great soulful vinyls and stuff, and even techno and electro and all that kind of stuff from like the 80s, early 90s. Whereas I feel we don't only, it was a real niche over here. So you might have rock and roll that's, you know, the equivalent, but yeah, so that's why I guess I do a lot more collaborations with people overseas.
And who got you into that sort of music here? Was it like mates? You'd go, like you said, you go to mates' place and they'd have those sort of records and stuff. Because at the time, I think with that techno stuff, at the time it would have been the first time that techno is actually starting to come out into like society. People are actually making this new type of sound for the first time, so maybe that's why it wasn't as big in Australia.
Yeah.
And maybe you didn't get lots of people in Australia who were making that sort of sound. Was mainly in the US.
Yeah.
But how did you get into from growing up in the rock and roll era? How did you get into the soul sort of disco? Because there's not many people who actually now do that stuff.
People,
yeah,
right?
there's not many people who actually are involved in creating that sort of music now that I know, especially in a mainstream sort of market. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think firstly as well, to make that music, it's hard because you need to have musically qualified. A lot of producers back then for the disco stuff, they'd work with musicians and they'd have a studio session or a live session with musicians, and they'd record strings and stuff. That's stuff you can't produce on a computer, and it's very expensive and very hard to get your hands on over here. To get like 15 guys, a really good bassist, guitarist and string. So that's part of the crippling factor over here. And secondly, computers. It's very hard for technology to replicate like that organic, like acoustic sound. We're getting really close, but just to nail that sound is really, really hard. So in terms of me getting into that, I think I'm probably in that basket where the lack of exposure has made me more curious and really seem to, go out and try and find it, which is great because, it's why your heart ticks, I guess. Going overseas for me is like so exciting to just go and explore this, learn whatever I can, or the culture, the history behind, particularly the music that I'm into is overseas. When I travel, it's like another element of my travel to go and pick this up. So
it's a bit of a discovery, not just for business, for the touring and stuff like that. You use the touring stuff to just discover the world, right?
Exactly. And it's amazing. Like, I've traveled quite a bit for this, but it's a really weird effect when you travel from here. Every month I come back into the country back here, it's like I'm super motivated and I'm so inspired. And then 1 month ticks over, that motivation slowly kind of like decreases. And then all of a sudden I'm here for 7 months, and then I'm like back to this level, like this 9 to 5 kind of mentality work. I'm like, I got to go to work, and I can only spend half an hour on this stuff and exploring, and then I got to worry about my bills like everyone else and this and that. Whereas when you go overseas, all of a sudden it's just like, forget about the bills. It's like 10 hours a day of just like information just coming in. And then that's how you get the ideas, I guess, as well. Like, and all the gigs I go to overseas as well, and gigs I play at, friends. You're just like, you wake up, I remember like, wake up at 8 a.m, you're hungover as hell, but you've just got this melody like in your head. You didn't hear it the night before, but you've kind of developed it just from like hearing someone play this and then hearing someone play this with a massive beat, just like driving like the energy of the room. And you're just like, if I just combine those elements, then it's the restriction, it's the limitation of, what you can actually pump out on the keyboard and, reproduce and, produce in your bedroom and stuff and in your studio. Whether you can match that, but it's all up there in the head, and at least it's up there. So
it's the environment maybe that makes you, that environment, being with creative people, being in that scene where you have all that stuff around you, makes you even get into the vibe a bit more. Maybe when you're here and you're not surrounded by as many people, the motivation or the inspiration is hard to get.
And I find, especially in depending what country you go to or what city you're in, like my favorite city in particular, Paris, for these kind of scenes, these clubs, like outdoor setups, festival kind of setups. everything's so creative, like from the lighting to like the concepts they have, stage design, like the music that the early DJs are playing to the late DJs. There's so many stimulants that just like, inspire you. It's really, and that's the same with everyone in that industry. It's like, lighting techs and stuff, see that, they're blown away, video people, photographers, and there's a lot going on.
You got a residency in Paris, don't you?
Yeah, I've had some over the years, but it's hard because I've had a couple of little residencies, but you can only play every now and again because of like an exclusivity thing. It's just like Paris is a place where the residency thing is like very strong, I guess. The the population, plenty of people, as opposed to a small, not that Melbourne's a smaller city, but Melbourne's got small little niche scenes. It's the same people coming over and over again, whereas at least the vibe in Paris, it's like you're playing to different people every night, so people are always kind of, you're coming across new people. And
would you say that Paris, the sound that they're putting out and the DJs that they hire is like very similar to like your sound, which is why you kind of resonate with going to Paris a lot?
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess Paris is France. Look, I don't know whether it's got anything to do with the language, but I think, like they're very, and same with Italy as well. They're very orientated around like the melodies and the harmonies in the music. As opposed to if you go to Germany or Holland, like trance is big in Holland, techno's big in Germany. I find French people and the Italians, but really appreciate like that rich kind of melody, kind of stuff, which is very heavily orientated in around like 70s music. A lot of 70s music, 80s music, soul music was very rich with like kind of like super qualified musicians, but just have this like extra soul factor, I guess. So right,
talk about some of your I guess tour stories, because you first started touring in 2014, right?
I think that was it.
How'd you get your first tour?
All right, we'll start there first.
How did you make enough music or have enough exposure to like get contacts to get into a tour?
Yeah, well, it was funny. Like I always, and it's probably a good message to a lot of people out there. I always thought someone had to come over and like headhunt you or approach you, and I was thinking, geez, like for that to happen, coming from the country we come from, we're so far away. You got to factor in like the cost of flights and then accommodation for so long. With my story, that was the dream, but then, I had a friend overseas at the time, and he got my SoundCloud login. He asked for it, I sent it to him, and then, like, you can check your stats and where everyone's from, and then he noticed that, like, 95% of the audience was, like, from Europe at the time, and no one listened to it really in Melbourne. And he's like, and I was due for a holiday, and he's like, well, I was going to go over and see him for holidays, and he's like, well, why don't we just try and get you gigs? So I'll be your manager. So he started, putting some feel. I think one day on Facebook we had a bit of content at the time, but we put out just a message, and that's when Facebook had really good reach and everything. It was all organic, none of this kind of like blocks and filters. So put the message out. I'm like, hey, I'm coming to Europe from this date to this date. Put your hand up or DM me if you want to do a show together. And then all of a sudden, I went to bed, woke up with like 3 emails the next day. They're like, oh, if you're in Germany, we'll put you on. And, Paris, we'll put you on. Italy, we'll put you on. And all of a sudden, we're like, it's coming together. And then Dutch dude reached out, and he was like, well, you can stay at my place. And so he kind of looked after the project as well, and then we kind of teed up not necessarily a successful tour, but I remember where people were asking, how much do you want? And we're kind of like Australian rates, thinking a couple $100 and 3 drink cards or something, between 10 friends. It's not really going to get you far. And then they just kind of laughed, and they were like, we don't even pay the cleaners. Like, we don't, the cleaners get more than that, So, and I'm like, okay, maybe like...
How much can you get?
200, 300. So like kind of pepped it up and realised, it was more of a, rated more as a profession over there, and it was really well respected. So, compared to over in Australia, where in my field you'd probably be playing, at a local bar, in a side street somewhere with, a couple of 50-year-old men floating around and,
right.
Bowler's hats, someone walking around spiking drinks and stuff, that kind of...
Fights break out.
Fights, yeah.
That's happened to me before.
Yeah, I can imagine. But, yeah, obviously, like at the top end in Melbourne here, it's really good, like, organised professional events. But it's just the standard over in Europe is very recognised, and... you get your cowboy promoters and stuff who, try to pay you cash and this and that. But, you get looked after a lot more. So then we kind of, gauged a bit of a standard, as to what to get paid and this and that, and asked for accommodation and this and that. And all of a sudden we're piecing together little tours here and there. And, it was very good fun. But it was when I was much younger. I was like 24, 25. And it's a lot of sleepless nights. And then, you make the mistake of, oh, shit, we'll book the train at 6 a.m., not 6 p.m. God, how are we going to do that? So all of a sudden, that's got to stop over in somewhere for 12 hours. And you're like, oh, my God. You're hungover. You're eating McDonald's every day. And... so they're the downsides, but the upsides are great, meeting new people and, like exploring places, but from a local perspective rather than, sitting under the Eiffel Tower and, getting robbed or mugged or something and then, going to the Tower of Pisa or something like that, So it's cool, yeah.
You really got into like a bit of the culture while you were there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in the music as well, you're pretty much playing to the local people who love it. So you really get into it. I feel it'd be a good way to meet people of that country,
Exactly, and that's probably the best thing about it. Like, you can pay thousands and thousands of dollars and take time off your job back here and organise like a proper holiday and try and pick up the culture of a place, but like, you do this music stuff and you're right into the heart of these places with like really traditional people sometimes, and like you genuinely with the locals and how they go about their day-to-day life. So, I've stayed at their places and like hung out with them, and, I was supposed to be there for one day. It ended up being 3 days, just because we're having a lot of fun, and so pick up a lot.
Definitely. Does the tour life get like overwhelming or crazy at any point in time? In a couple of different ways. Like, I guess some days you kind of like at some festivals with like your favorite DJs, you kind of like, wow, I can't believe I was listening to this guy in my bedroom 2 years ago, dreaming of paying $300 for a ticket to be in the front row, for the concert, and then all of a sudden you're just having a drink with them backstage and like hanging out. Some of my friends, Breakbot, and a couple of French guys who have come to this country, like they've just hung out with me at my place and stuff. I had a trip with them in Mexico recently. That was good fun. And the good thing is it's such a small community as well. So like all of a sudden, before you know it, and some guys have broken through, like knowing, having collaborations with, like I know one guy I love, Busy P. All of a sudden he's hosted like Tyler the Creator
Last 2 weekends ago in a gig in Paris, and all of a sudden you're hanging out with people who hang out with them, and really, really, it's a small world. So that's a thrill. And then the other overwhelming factor, well, I wouldn't say overwhelming, but sometimes you get a lot more than you bargained for in terms of going through the rough side of things, like missing a flight. And that's kind of overwhelming in a sense that, all of a sudden you're in the middle of nowhere, you've missed a plane.
Have you missed a set? Or a few sets?
I don't think so. I think I've been pretty good. That's because it's like that's your priority. And if you miss one of them, you're pissing off a lot of people.
Yeah.
So,
around.
Yeah, and you don't want that hanging on your head.
Shit.
No, but, I've heard of a lot of people missing gigs ignorantly before. But for me, it's doesn't matter what the gig is. I'm still going to want to do my best and be as prepared as I can. And there's no point, never has it been a point of comfort. It's actually like a very tense moment. My old manager, Elliot, we used to travel together and do all the gigs, and he's really looking forward to it, even though he's not playing. And he's like, yeah, that'll be great, And I'm shitting myself. I'm so not comfortable.
Yeah.
And I'm like a basket case. And they're knocking on the door. They're like, you ready? And I've gone out and I feel like as stiff as a board. Especially when you're on a stage and the lights are on. You feel like you scratch your face and you're going to, it feels like 10 minutes. You got your finger, like you're picking your nose or something, like this, But that's where I prefer those kind of dark little hidden away DJ booths where people aren't looking at you and you can just kind of do your thing. Yeah, you just blend in. But sometimes it's pretty confronting when, everyone's looking at you.
You don't like the pressure?
No, it's good. It's good to have the pressure, but it's just you never feel comfortable. And that's why maybe I perform or, get good results because you're concentrating extra hard. But there's a point where I have been drunk before. It still sounds good in my ear, but it might not have been,
Were you more relaxed on that particular gig?
Definitely more relaxed.
Yeah.
But there's the careless mistakes you might make, and everyone makes mistakes. Yeah. But, especially with Ableton, I don't know what would happen if you were CDJing, but with Ableton, sometimes the filter's been all the way down or all the way up, and it's just that channel is completely silent.
Right. So
all of a sudden I've gone right next scene, bang, expecting the music to go into the chorus, and all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, you shit yourself.
Right.
Fuck.
See, that's
but people don't notice, as much as you do. If something's wrong, I notice it straight away. But people are drunk and just, dancing around. And they think it's part of the song, generally.
Yeah.
So,
have you had stages where you've had bad crowds? Have you had bad moments where the crowd's just not feeling you? Or,
yeah.
And how do you go about that?
Yeah, terrible. So, we had one in Lake Como where it's an hour north of Milan. We were booked for this festival, and this was a little sideshow thing. Rock up, it was an experience of a lifetime, to be honest. Great place. It was on the lake. It was a locals night kind of thing. So there's 2,000 Italians who couldn't even speak English.
Yeah.
And we're all sitting down at the restaurant that overlooks the club. And then the promoter comes over and says, firstly, I hear them talking at the restaurant with the other guys who were playing, and they're like, oh, so what kind of music does he do exactly? The promoter who didn't really know me. And I'm like, oh boy, that's a worry, if that guy doesn't know what I do. And then promoter comes over and goes, oh, the guy our agent for that trip was like, oh, by the way, this set, just try and play a little bit more familiar stuff. And I'm kind of thinking, what? what do you mean? You know, like, and then the DJ before me plays.
I hate that shit.
Yeah, DJ before me plays, and I'm like, oh boy, it's playing like, you know,
top
40 stuff. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like, I don't have anything to follow that up with. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, because talk about that, because you're on Ableton instead of doing like CDJs or running it through Serato or something. Yeah. That's very like unorthodox as far as DJing
exactly. Not
goes.
many people do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, and I'm not too sure how you would even DJ on Ableton, but like just grabbing those sort of tracks out of nowhere I would assume is a lot trickier than having those songs already on the CDJ
exactly.
or
you
on
can't
the computer.
necessarily do it on the fly. Mm. So that's part of the reason why the panic mode kicked in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh boy, you know, got to get my warping skills on here. So I had to warp the shit out of like whatever semi-commercial tracks I had and just hope that was going to work. And then it was my turn to go on, and I'm like, oh boy. And they introduced me. Name goes up on the big screen, and I'm like, oh boy, you know, don't like the big grand introduction. And then I started with like Duck Sauce anyway, which is like the old 8-track Armand Van Helden project. And
I thought you were going to say Barbra Streisand for a second.
No, yeah, at the time.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, okay, I'll try this. And it just didn't respond well. And that was the first track. And then I'm like, oh boy, God, where do I go from here? And then I thought, no, you know what? Stuff it. I'll do my thing. I'll just see if that works. And you get it wrong every now and again. And like out of 2,000 people, it just started like slowly dispersing. And I'm like, oh man, you know, why don't I just go back to Australia and become a garbage collector, or like go work in a library or something like that? You know, at least I'm not going to have those lonely, depressing moments. And I was saying to Elliot at the time, I'm like, oh my God, get me off.
Yeah.
And Elliot's like, no, everyone's loving it. It's good. And I'm like, no, they don't. And then finally the club owner came over to me and was like, hey, off, 5 minutes. And like, you know, I wanted to freaking kill myself after that. No, not really. But I wanted to like, you know, I'm like, maybe I just need to produce commercial music.
You just wanted
to
go
maybe
home.
I'll go do that, like, you know, David Guetta or something like that, or, you know, change what I'm doing, because I can't, you know, just people don't like it. You know, people don't like this niche kind of direction. And then rocking up at the next gig after in that tour was the festival for that. That went really well actually. But then going to another place like in the Balkan country, in the Balkan area, like Montenegro and Serbia and stuff, I'm thinking, they don't know disco music. Like, you know, I'm doomed. You know, I'm absolutely doomed. And all of a sudden, like, I don't know any disco music DJs who come from there, or clubs, famous clubs that come from there, play like in this niche club, like built into the Podgorica football stadium. And all of a sudden, I asked the guy, like, you know, clarifying. I'm like, so what do you want me to play tonight? And he's like, oh, just do it. Just play anything disco and soul. And all of a sudden, everyone's going crazy for, like, disco, like playing, like, a red disco track, soulful track. And people were going crazy. And they're the moments you kind of live for, you know? And you were just, like, jamming with them as much as possible. You're throwing your hands in the air and, like, you know, moving sideways, and, you know, it's just one big party, everyone on the same level. So that was the roller coaster ride. And then, like, you know, I've played in front of tables and chairs before, you know, dud gigs here and there. You know, we all do as DJs, I guess.
Yeah, that's definitely happened to me.
Yeah, so, it's not all the big, you know, hands in the air kind of fist pumping crowds every time. So
did the people who booked you for that gig that didn't go, did they know what your music was all about before they booked you?
The Montenegrin one?
No, the one before. Yeah,
the Italian one?
Yeah, the Italian one.
No, that was like
random guys that you came.
Yeah, it was like a top-up gig. So we were playing with a group called Reset, and they used to be really big in like 2008, but they were massive all over Italy. So they were just like well known, but they play like Italian fidget, like really up-tempo, like Crookers. I don't know if you remember Crookers at all. They did like that Kid Cudi song.
That was huge.
Massive.
Yeah, day and night.
Yeah, so they kind of they were kind of that genre. And then as for me, I kind of fitted into their little, kind of under their wing a little bit in some ways, but then they got that gig up there and invited me to go along as a top-up gig for this festival, like a sideshow. And they're well known regardless, but then as for me, I wasn't known at all in that particular area. So it's weird because a couple of people come up and go, "Oh, hey, you're LeBron. Oh, I've been following you and a fan for blah blah blah." And you look at them; they're having a great time, but then the rest of the other 300 people are all like kind of.
What's going on?
But I mean, that's that's the dud ones, I guess.
And so. I think it's just important for the promoters to kind of advertise what it is first and foremost, because like if I know I'm going into, say, like a dancehall club, like I'm not gonna be upset that they're not playing my type of music, which is hip hop. Like exactly, I'm gonna appreciate the dancehall music, you know what I mean?
Exactly,
that might have been the situation there.
Exactly, yeah. It's very important, especially in my point of view, coming from my side, that everyone's on the same wavelength in terms of promoting it to the right avenues. And that's the job of a promoter as well. Like, when you come back to Melbourne, it's a responsibility of the DJ to get numbers in as well, like promote and get their mates in. But over in Europe, I guess they don't have an issue with like population and attendances at venues. To cut above the rest of the competitors, you solely do well on if you have good music at your club. So it's a responsibility of like the bookers and the promoters to find really good specific musicians or DJs, and that's what people appreciate, because anyone can just get like a guy with a USB with every top 40 track going around and make it popular. So yeah.
How'd you find the marketing side of it, like you were saying? Because we had last week, one of them was really into it. They love like promoting and stuff, and the other one was like, oh well, if I play my music, I'll put it out a bit, but I'm not going to push it down for people to like or whatever. Do you find like it's hard? I know as a photographer, and it's just a pain in the ass doing you got to do it, but it's a pain in the ass. How'd you find? Are you into it, or are you just doing it?
It's funny. It's a good question, because I think it's really important to do it, obviously. But, if you're at a certain level with your music, and it's more important to focus on your music. And if you can get a friend or someone to help you to cover that side, which is, I was lucky enough I had someone doing that, because all of a sudden, if you're exchanging emails back and forth, trying to organise a booking, but then also like, spending hours and hours of your time like contacting, promoting down different avenues, that's less time you have for your music. It's really important. But as a team with that person, or whether you're doing it yourself, I think the key is actually being creativity. Because if you generically, do the same kind of promotional message that everyone else does, you're just going to fit into that category of just another guy or another brand like promoting the same kind of sound. Sound might be different, but same promoting,
technique and stuff.
Same technique. If you can think of creative things, like kind of breaking the internet kind of tricks, I think there was people get excited about really different ideas and different things, and sometimes I guess it backfires, but unique concepts. Like I remember there's a story about this band on Spotify when Spotify came out. Wasn't necessarily like a promotional technique, but it was like breaking a system and being different. They reached out, they had maybe 10,000 followers, and again, when Facebook was kind of organic, they put out a message saying to all their fans, hey, we've released our album. There's this site, Spotify, everyone, if you turn your monitors off and just automate, like put it on repeat, click our EP release or album, and just like hit repeat and let it play all night long while you're sleeping for 24 hours, turn your monitor off. Let's see how many plays we can get. You know, that's kind of exciting, engaging stuff. And I guess that's my problem, is like you're always, as a perfectionist, you're always trying to find that ultimate solution, you know, like a great idea like that no one else has done. And that's my limitation, is I stop there. I don't do it because I'm still seeking that kind of perfect method, whereas you still need to you still need to do some work, you know, you still need to get the message out in some way. So there's a balance.
Yeah, I was saying this to a friend recently, like, especially in hip-hop music, there's so many terrible examples of marketing. Like, it works, but they're promoting a lot of negative stuff, you know, throughout. Has there been any really good examples that have sort of caught your eye? You mentioned the one where it loops plays on Spotify, but has there been anything else that's kind of caught your eye? And I'll ask you this as well. Yeah,
there was one. I've got to think about it, but there was like a really... I guess like the whole branding thing, like if you do like I know some guys, they do like merchandise is a really good thing. Really, yeah, okay, so flight facilities, right? Like they went out and sponsored a local soccer team. So they're from Sydney, and they literally sponsored their local under 11s soccer team and made it like, you know, the flight facility, like put the big flight facilities logo just on some little kids' uniforms, and then took a photo, and it was a hit. Everyone absolutely loved it, you know. And then they had like a little merch pack where they got like the sleeping masks, you know, because the flight facilities it's relevant with planes and stuff. So they had, let's do the flight facilities travel pack. So you had like the night socks, the bed socks with like the logo on, you know, the eye mask with the logo on. You know, and these are all really cheap things. Like you can easily order in China, but it's just thinking of that idea to put like associate like a music brand with that, and then just cool little concepts like that, I guess. Yeah, I had heaps of others. I just can't think of them off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's all good. I guess that probably worked because the plane company. They're advertising with the soccer team, and they kind of show it's symbolism. It's like, like they're showing that they're with the community here, so like people might get behind the airline, right? Yeah.
Well, I had another.
I
one
guess that's my thoughts anyway. I'm not sure if that's the direction.
I had one I was thinking of one before. What was it? Oh, I'm not in the best state to just recall everything.
Yeah. Any examples for you, Brian?
Well, I've seen some in photography, maybe not as much of advertising, but of more sharing people's work. So there's these three guys, these three Melbourne videographers and photographers who they just make vlogs in Melbourne and take photos and stuff. And when they travel, they do photo battles. So what they do, they take photos. They don't tell you who's taking what photo. Yeah. They put them up all on their Instagrams and stuff, and they get you to vote on whose photo is the best. So it's sort of exposure. It's a competition at the same time, but it's also exposure because you don't know who you're going to support. So I feel like it's a very good way of like, you know, helping everyone, the three of you, and also exposing all your different talents, but no one really knows where. Yeah, definitely the
collaboration.
Yeah.
Definitely collabs are a great way of like reaching your brand out.
Yeah.
Getting a lot of exposure, you know, and some artists, I guess, the only problem is a lot of artists get very, I wouldn't say selfish, but they're very controlling of their project. But that's when you have like their manager or someone overseeing, you know, not giving 100% of the authority to the artist, and they set other collaborations up. And sometimes you got to trust that manager, because even the artist is like very narrow-minded. Because sometimes if you find the right connection or the right formula, it's genius. Like it just blows up.
I think your manager really probably looks at the greater good of your music when you're solely looking at your own music. They're looking at what can we do. They're looking for another pair of shoes. They're not looking from your eyes, so they can see, you know, how this could work, but you might not see it. And I think with collaboration or with promoting, like you said before, being interactive in the promotion, that's where that's the key of really good promotion. So these guys who are doing a competition in the promotion of their photos, or the people doing advertising, as you were saying before, and even the album thing you were saying, where if you can just leave your song playing overnight, you're actually getting them to interact and they sort of feel involved or part of the process.
Exactly.
And that's how you get people, to really get into your field or into your creative work.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree. Like that audience interaction is like super.
And they feel valued. I feel like your fan base feels valued when they interact,
Well, I was at a festival actually. This French guy, his name's Jacques. Cliche,
very French.
Very stereotypical, but he's a really different guy. Really different. He wears like a Jester's kind of... He's a DJ producer. He wears like a Jester's, like colourful... Like, he wears the opposite of what people would normally wear in society. Now, I wouldn't go that far, but he literally like shaves the top of his head and then leaves his hair here.
Oh, right. Purposely bald.
Yeah, purposely bald. And it grows back every now and again, but before a gig he gets a trim again. But he did this really cool thing, and this was like the best example of audience interaction. It was his slot. He's jumped on. He's not on stage. He's like, off to the back left, suspended up high on like a balcony thing. He's got a microphone. He's like just tapping some rhythms into like a microphone. And then he works his way down. Like he tries to do every show different. He gets down to the stage. He's playing music. All of a sudden he stops the music halfway through. He's like, everyone, let's make a song together. So he puts his phone number up on the screen, on the big screen. And he's got his phone and he goes, all right, I want someone to call my number and we're going to make a song. So they call him up, someone from the audience, and everyone can hear this person speaking on the phone. And he's like, right, I want you to sing like a line of a song, or I want you to make up your own lyrics. So they sing in the phone, and then he records that, puts it on a looper, and then like builds a whole song round it live.
That's sick.
And it's amazing.
Wow.
But people go, whoa, like especially the person or the people around them. What an experience for someone.
Definitely.
And that's like a story that just goes, that lives forever, that people can, share.
Yeah, because nothing about that. There is some pre-planning because you have to have a bit of a knowledge and example to craft the song just off the top. But you're giving that sort of experience to your fans. The fan gets to be a part of that song. That's really cool.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of cool ideas, but as you said, like interaction is like audience interaction is like key. Everyone loves it, and that's as people have told me, like, who hates that? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why would anyone hate that? People should appreciate, such a gesture or something like that. Mm-hmm. You have your haters out there, and you can't do anything about that. But it's all positive, I guess.
Definitely. Yeah. We were speaking about the importance of a good manager beforehand. And I was speaking to some friends recently, like, I feel like the best managers have a little bit of experience in, like, everything around the artistry goes. So, you can answer this for yourself, but my favorite manager, and I feel like the best manager of all time, is Diddy, because Diddy started off as an intern, I think, with Uptown Records, and, he was getting into the nitty-gritty, doing some A&R stuff. Eventually became his own label owner with Bad Boy and was managing some of the biggest artists at the time in the 90s, like Biggie and Faith and Lil' Kim. Yeah. He got into rapping as well, so he knew what it was like to be an artist. He had to manage relationships as well, because that was the time where Biggie was having sex with Faith and Lil' Kim at the same time, so he had to manage that whole situation and everything. Yeah. And Diddy just ends up being a huge entrepreneur afterwards, with the Ciroc and everything. So yeah, I really like Diddy as a manager. And I think that's the importance of a manager just knowing what an artist feels like in a way.
Absolutely. So, like, you got to realize a lot of artists out there are not like, especially those genius artists out there, they're not like normal people. They need to be protected. They're quite shy, they can be easily manipulated by the wrong people, especially like bookers and all this. That's where you need someone, you know, like a manager, kind of like a father figure to some extent. Like they allow the manager they allow the artist to have their own time and be in their environment. They try and find the best environment for you know, there's lots of examples recently, like the whole Avicii, like there's a documentary on Avicii, but, you know, like someone of that stature needs to be protected, because if someone can get like a gig out of him, like an extra gig out of him, and it doesn't fit around his schedule, and he's a guy who's playing 250 gigs, he was a guy playing 250 gigs a year and like absolutely thumping his body, like something out of schedule like that just pops up can be really dangerous to contributing to their health. My favourite label, like Ed Banger Records, are like a French label, 2005 they started. The founder, Busy P, Pedro Winter, he first began in the late 90s managing Daft Punk. And Daft Punk, as we know, got, you know, super big and famous. And the money he got out of managing them, he developed into his new label. And basically, he learned from all of his, you know, all of his experiences through managing Daft Punk. He bought into the new project, and exactly the same as Didi, it was like, you know, he knows the music side. He was a DJ himself, so he knows the music side of things, but then he's aware of the business side of things. His new record label now is very successful with releases, merchandise, running events, parties, concepts, doing collaborations with big corporate brands, Adidas, Swatch, you know, like Rolex and stuff like that. And they've got into streetwear. They're very popular in the streetwear side of things. He's done projects with Kanye West, Tyler the Creator recently, all these guys. But when he nurtures his artists, like he makes sure that, you know, they're well looked after, and he just knows the way it works. But it's very important to have someone who's rounded, you know, but can stand back and look at things from a broader perspective. And that's something that some people involved in a project can't do if you're narrowly focused on the one side or one kind of department of that organisation. You need someone who's, you know, at pace with the rest of the world and overlooking and seeing what's going on. So, yeah, really important.
That sounds like your dream label to be signed on, actually.
Well, yeah.
Have
it's been a favourite.
Or your team been involved in like a scene where you've probably been taken advantage of or not handled the way you'd like it to be?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like all the time, you got to be really careful. Like money, obviously. You know, as I said before, the cowboy promoters and cowboy bookers, especially when you're doing tours or coming from far away, you know, you don't want something to go wrong. You don't want to be like not paid. You need to be looked after, I guess. And
would they pay you before your gig, or?
Well, that's what the idea is.
Yeah, because once you're done, you're leaving. It's a bit hard to follow it up once you left.
Yeah, so basically you need, and that's where you need to arrange things in advance, like a 50% beforehand, a month beforehand, and then, you know, 50% on the night. But we've had situations where the nature of the industry as well, especially with the cowboys, is that they wait for the night to happen and then people pay cash on the door, and then, you know, you get a chip at the door. That's traditionally what like America does, you know, door money. And it's only when you get to like more professional organizations, they're more prepared and they can take the risk of paying someone up front. But that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm at a stage where it's kind of in between. You know, like I do a lot of side gigs and stuff where, you know, it's slipped a bit of cash here and there, but then getting there in the first place in that particular city, I've got to be enticed with something pretty concrete, I guess.
Or else you're going all the way there for not much.
Yeah.
Or for not knowing, or you're going with an unknown.
You're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
a lot of trouble. Like I remember I was booked for this gig once in another continent, and I'm thinking, where's my tickets? They were supposed to pay for the tickets. And then they're like, yeah, send us your passport. Yeah, we'll get that. We'll get you tickets. You'll get them Thursday, and the flight will be Friday. Come Thursday, they're like, oh shit, tickets are too much. With the other 3 artists we're trying to bring in, and I'm just like, oh my god, if you're gonna make such an error like that, what if I made it over there and then all of a sudden, what if we had a different agreement and you're left in the shitter? But I guess it all depends on the agreement you come up with.
Sure.
And there's sometimes some people don't book your accommodation as well. So sometimes I just go, all right, lump sum, and then I'll sort my own accommodation and to cut costs, stay at friends' places or like a real cheap, shitty place, Some places put you up in a really nice hotel. I'm like, I don't need this, but then some places just go, oh yeah, be at the gig at 9 and play and then see you later. Good luck. Good luck trying to know where to stay.
Yeah.
So that's where you just got to have all your bases covered, I guess. Language barriers can be pretty nuts too.
Right.
Like we had a couple of things in China, and like God, it's just like a different world.
Yeah.
Like we were trying to get a taxi to the gig, and just so happens if it's raining in Shanghai, you can't get in the, and you're a Westerner, you can't get in the back of a taxi. They just won't take you.
Why's that?
I don't know whether it was a thing with like dirty shoes. I don't know, but they like just refused to take us, and we were waiting for an hour and a half, getting in and out of 27 taxis that did pull over, and the other 20 just drove past.
Damn.
And we're like, here's the address, can you take us there?
So you'd get in and then they'd say,
yeah, we get in and they're like, get in. There's no, even body language gestures are completely different. I remember giving like thumbs up, going, good, that's good. And they were kind of looking at me going, like that.
You know what?
I'm like, I thought that was like a global like
sign, like a sign.
Great, thank you. I don't know the word good in Chinese, but thank you, And they were kind of, it could have been like this in for all I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of going, why are you giving me the finger kind of thing.
How was the crowd of people? How's the Chinese crowd DJing to them? Were they like as
really
responsive
cool.
as everyone,
really
like the European
different.
people?
Really different. Like I remember, like you'd think when you go to those places, especially being a Westerner, the audience is going to be mainly like expats or like people from England or Western countries, I guess. But like I'd rock up and there would be not one Westerner there. They'd all be locals and no one would be able to speak English.
Wow.
And you kind of like, geez, that's really weird. And you'd never see China's not a country well known for my genre of music, but all of a sudden they'd be grooving and like dancing like you'd see in Soul Train videos, like and you're kind of like, what? It was really weird.
It's like weird, yeah.
Yeah, and like I mean that's like the sign of a good booker is they've educated them well enough on what to expect. So it's not like I've rocked up and people didn't know what was going to happen. So, and looking around, there's lots of confused people. It wasn't the case at all. People were really getting into it. And I actually did a video show there as well. And that was like super engaging for them. They really enjoyed what I did with that. Mm-hmm. So, I did this little video show that links up animations, kind of like GIF images. But because I play like 80s kind of music, I get 80s clips and then synchronize that with the music, but 4-beat, 8-beat loops, and it kind of, it was like the video clip. It's almost like it's supposed to be like the video clip for that song, but then you've got another element of control as to how you want people to feel. So you might have like a Sesame Street, character, doing something corny and something fun, but it's to a really serious song, and you can actually get people to get in their mind that, hey, don't it's not supposed to be that dark and depressing. It's supposed to be like this kind of vibe. That's an example, but you can like open up another avenue, I guess, to like giving people a message,
I think you told me this ages ago, like that I should get into video DJ.
Yeah.
Are you doing all of this live? Like this is all synchronized with Ableton Live, and you're doing this with like, because I think there is a video feature in Ableton. I'm not too sure though.
Yeah, so it's difficult. So Ableton, like Logic and I think a lot of music programs can do it. If you do like the scene view or like the wave file view, you can actually lay out the wave file of the video, and then you can like affect crazy. That.
Yeah.
But when I play live, it won't let you play the video live if it's in the clip view, in the sessions view. So what you got to do, then you got to find another program, and sometimes you have to, like I used, what's the feature in live? I forget what it is. It's like a plug-in thing, and you can kind of design your own like programmers and stuff. It's like a beta kind of thing. You can live Max.
I was going to say Max, but I wasn't too sure.
Yeah, Max. So like dudes can like program their own like synths and program their own effects, customize it, route it, and then launch it as a product. Or if you want to do one yourself, you can run one yourself. So I was investigating all that. Bought a lot of programs to work out how to run video through the live sessions view. Nothing was working. I came across one called Jam 2, which cost me like $60, and then I was slowly getting there. And then I was like, going into the code and everything, working out how to get it the way I want to get it, and nothing was working. And that's when I think back when I was in uni, I showed Steve Ward. I said, have a look at this. This is what I want to do. And we were both kind of puzzled. And to his credit, he's very highly, sophisticated with this technology. Within, half an hour, he was getting the story, getting the understanding of what I wanted to do, but we just couldn't find it. There were limitations. So eventually I found a program, Resolume, which is amazing for VDJing. And it's like, I guess, if you've got video in a club or something, everyone would probably use that. And it like launches clips. So then I got the MIDI clock of Ableton Live, exported the MIDI clock to Resolume. So basically it told Resolume what beat we're working with. So then all of a sudden I sync the same parameters with the MIDI controller. So I'd do like low pass filter would be synced with like the blue rinse on the program. So every time I hit this, I was supposed to just be initially I was affecting the filter. All of a sudden it's doing a visual effect at the same time.
Fantastic,
too.
Yeah.
So then when you change the MIDI the MIDI tempo, the tempo of the song, same thing, synchronized perfectly. So all of a sudden, the only problem is then you're looking at computer, CPU and power and everything. Yeah. And I was lucky. I ended up doing some gigs with it, but it was very hard to do freestyle. Very hard. Yeah.
Well, Serato Video just like kind of does all of that. I've never tried it or anything like that, but just like what you were saying with the filters and effects and all that sort of stuff. Like you can even customize it and everything like that, which is really cool.
So Ableton is essentially you can do all that, but the cool thing about Serato is like the live scratching and everything. It will like sync up the time code.
Oh yes, even
the
scratching
video
as well. We'll go back and forth with the clip.
And that's a really cool thing. There's a DJ called DJ Yoda, who was like a famous hip hop. I don't know where he's from, maybe UK or US, I think. But he was like the dude for videos. So he would he'd fuse like famous movie scenes and then all of a sudden make like a massive trap beat out of it or hip hop kind of beat out of it. And then all of a sudden, like with Star Wars, like a lightsaber, he'd like put that in, he'd make a rhythm out of that, but then that would appear on the screen at the same time.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's endless. But the only problem with video is that maybe now with media you can get that out there and you can post some content online, but the only problem is if you're a DJ is essentially playing a nightclub and people want to look at each other and dance together and lights do their thing. People aren't necessarily focusing on a screen, but that's in a very small underground kind of dance club kind of environment. If you've got people fixated with at the DJ because they've come to watch the DJ, and then the DJ's got like a show behind them as well. The trick is with VDJing not to do too much detail. You've got to do like
obvious things.
Yeah, or subtle stuff.
Subtle stuff like you don't want people, folding their arms and watching the screen, watching a movie unfold. They just want to see like funny or like subtle little temporary little things like music is. You don't want. Sometimes if you listen to a symphonic orchestra, there's too much. There's no rhythm or anything. It's just music talking, and it's a lot to listen to. And that's why dance music is very repetitive, because it's just you don't have to concentrate too much. You just feel the rhythm, and essentially that's what you got to do with the videos if you're going to do it. So
there we go, man.
Yeah, there's no way to technically define it. But there's something there, I can't really explain it that well, but there's something subconscious that's just there that you notice. So,
with your music, from what I've come across, you have lots of sort of instrumentals.
Yeah.
Have you collabed with any artists, or do you have an intention to work with any artists?
Vocal artists, you're talking
vocal
about.
Artists to make something together, like.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to, but again, that's where it gets very difficult. One, technique-wise, there's like guys have been recording vocals for years, and if you haven't been doing that, then you don't feel your skills are up to scratch, and that's where you get. And especially if you're doing it without a multi-million-dollar studio where they can just get a singer in, they can break that vocal down and do whatever they want, If you're doing it with limitations, the singer gets something wrong, you can't really fix it, So it's, and again, it's communication. Like you got to express to the singer what you want if you want them to sing the way you want them to. And sometimes that's very hard. You got to be pretty hard with them and go, no. You don't want to settle for, something you don't want. You've got to like it. So sometimes some minds just don't they can't understand what you're saying. So that's where I've kind of had a little bit of difficulty.
You reckon with them, how people nowadays, sorry to cut you off, they make a beat and give it to someone, and then when they give it to them, they don't really care what they do. That's their song. Would you
do what you want? With it?
Would you be in that sort of mindset, or would you like to hear something that you want out of your own beat?
Oh, it's this, both ways. It's like sometimes the only issue is the end product. And if it's completely, if you want to compile it, if it's your baby, you want it to be, the way you want it. But then sometimes if it's like a collaboration with a slightly different genre, you're not kind of crossing paths too much. You can give them the project and go, look, do what you want with it. Use your inspiration. Sometimes you actually come up with some genius stuff either way.
Yeah.
So, it's just being open.
Yeah.
The more open you are, the more that can happen, I guess.
I don't think the issue is within your instrumentals, because we do a mix show here. I'm not too sure if you're aware, with Real Melbourne, and on Mix Show 2, I mixed Groove Line with an unreleased Chris Brown vocal, and boy, it was crazy. So I feel like vocals could definitely be a direction for you to take sometime soon.
Absolutely, and
it works. Like in that mashup, it sounded really good, man.
Yeah, well, essentially the music that I make is very rich in music. I want to have the music kind of, really engaging someone. And when the right vocal is applied as well, it's all part of the package, definitely. And effectively, I don't actually listen to lyrics myself, but for me, I hear vocals as like another instrument, and it's like this super adaptable instrument that's just like making a really cool noise. And then the whole other element of songwriting and stuff is like the lyrics that are, you know, portraying a story, and if they make sense, and, you know, neat words, kind of simplicity is like such a great thing as well. Sometimes it can be just such a, and I guess that's why I love like 70s and 80s music, because a lot of the soul music, it's about the birds and the bees and love and romance and stuff. And they can say such like short, sweet little things, but tied in with such a funky groove. It's just such like a crazy combination. So, yeah, like essentially that's a lot of R&B. You know, the roots of R&B. So a lot of my music is very R&B related.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, with that Chris Brown vocal, like I think he sampled a Lionel Richie song, so like he got 80s influence from that track anyway. So it worked well. Talk about what's next for you, because how long has it been? Has it been about like 3 years since you've dropped a project, like just like an album? So is that in the works in the future? And I know you're going on tour as well. Yeah, so I'm going to Europe for like next month or two, and then I always go this time of year, like the summer season over there.
Would you say your tours get bigger and bigger as you go?
Yeah, like it's to their own. It kind of grows. Like every time you're over there, all of a sudden, it's just like the ball starts to roll. You know, like you just go up and up and up. There's all of a sudden you're playing one gig and someone comes over to you and your team and they're like, "Oh, hey, are you available like in 2 weeks?" Or like in a month, I've got this really good gig that I really want you to play. And we're like, absolutely, let's do it, you know? And then at the same time I'm going over there, like I'm not really focusing on like absolutely compacting all the gigs, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever. I'm trying to space it out and spend more time with friends over there in studios, and I've got like a ton of ideas in my head, but the people I want to work with over there are like going to be finishing, you know, giving me that final bit of assistance, final ideas to kind of put in my production. So I really want to get over there, and then hopefully after the summer I've got some like good stuff to work on back home, and then go to like the whole marketing side of things and work out branding and when to release all that kind of stuff. So it does get exciting, but you know, for me it's just like I'm dying. I've got to do a lot of preparation now for like what music I'm going to be playing. You know, sometimes it's like a really big kind of pumping crowd gig wise, but then sometimes it's like a really relaxed kind of atmosphere for me. So I have to have, you know, the ammo to cover
horses for
all
courses.
Grounds. Yeah, like, so
I've never heard that term before.
Yeah, horses for courses. So you have to have like the same sort of right music for the right sort of crowd, the right group.
Yeah, so essentially that's where I have to kind of, you know, you have to have your flexibility as a DJ, kind of like your bag of weapons, I guess. Bag of tricks.
How long are you planning to go for on this tour to Europe? I know you said you're going to stop and, you know, work on a bit of music, not just a tour itself.
Yeah.
But how long are you planning to?
Going into this one, it's been very unorganized because I've changed my living situation, and you know, like trying to you know, close some chapters and get a bit of a new direction going musically as well. And I've just had to, basically the people I work with are overseas, so it's hard for me to know exactly how long I'm going to be going for until I get over there and work out, like physically kind of sit down and work out a bit of a plan and see who's around, and you know, people we've worked with before, like bookers and stuff, and see what they're doing, and yeah, seeing what we can tee up. So
it's safe to say no return flight as of yet to book.
It's too hard, you know. It costs so much money if you get it wrong, which I've done it before.
Yes.
And I'm actually in a bit of a predicament at the moment. I've got I was going for a visa to be all official and everything, but then, you know, dealing with the consulate up in Sydney. They don't have one in Melbourne, so I've had to go up there, lodge the paperwork, and then because I'm leaving on Monday, all of a sudden the visa's not ready, but they've got my passport. So you can't leave the country without the passport. So I'm on the phone to them like 100 times. They're not answering, not replying to emails, on time. I don't have a passport.
You're stressed right now, it's safe to say.
So finally today I was at peace a little bit. I got an email saying, okay, we'll send it out to you today, but I've checked the Australia Post tracking. No, it hasn't been signed off that it's on its way, but it's got to come to me by Monday, essentially. I might have lied. I said I'm leaving on Saturday to put a bit more urgency on it, but
sometimes you got to do that.
Yeah, you have to. Don't let them walk all over you.
Yeah. So, in that industry as well, I think you'd learn so much of that just dealing with lots of people through music that you can sort of add it on to other parts of your life, just get that strength and no one's going to walk over me, whether it's music or life or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to have your
take charge. Yeah,
you got to take the bull by the reins and make sure you know what you're doing. Yeah,
most definitely, man. Did you have anything else to kind of ask?
No, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground on this podcast.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, heard a lot of new things. I think this is the first time personally I've met someone who's done a bit of touring or in that music scene.
Yeah.
At that level, so it's good to hear the stories, and I'm pretty sure people will be tuning in to listen to it.
Oh, definitely.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for coming through, man.
Yeah.
Brian, take things away, man.
Good luck. Good luck with your tour as well. Yeah, so, if anyone wants to check out the podcast, we're on Real Melbourne _ therealmelbourne.com. You can go and check out our stuff there, playlists, MIXSHOWS, podcasts. And thank you, everyone, for listening in. Appreciate the environment, love one another, and follow your passion. Thank you, guys, and tune in next week.
Excellent. Cheers.
Thank you.